Dear colleagues, I'll be speaking to you about the Radio Regulations Board, one of the institutions in the radio communication sector of the ITU. We will look at the board's mandate, its composition, our duties, including the approval of the rules of procedure, our meetings, and some of our recent activities. The board's mandate is drawn from the ITU Constitution, the Convention, resolutions of the Plenipotentiary Conference, and the radio regulations. Number 82 of the ITU Constitution, that is under Article 13, establishes the Radio Regulations Board as a part of the radio communication sector of the ITU. Numbers 93 to 101 of the Constitution, under Article 14, outline the composition of the board, qualifications of its members, and the duties of the board. In particular, number 98 of the Constitution makes it clear that the members of the board shall serve as custodians of an international public trust and not as representing their respective member states nor a region. Numbers 140 to 147 of the ITU Convention provide additional duties of the board and outline its working methods, including the election of its chairman and vice chairman, number of meetings, and the decision-making process. PP Resolution 119 on methods to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the RRB reiterates the board's functions and contains specific provisions aimed at enhancing the transparency of the board's work. The radio regulations contain provisions relating to the work of the board. Under Article 6 on special agreements, Article 7 on application of procedures, and Article 14 on review of a bureau finding. Article 13 has 5 sections, and as you can see on the slide, 4 sections contain provisions relating to the board's work, including development and maintenance of the rules of procedure, deletion of assignments from the Master International Frequency Register, and the documents of the board. Now let's get into some more details, starting with the composition of the board. The board comprises 12 members elected at the PP for a 4-year tenure. The members are drawn from the 5 geographical regions. Region A, the Americas, with 2 seats. Region B, Western Europe, with 2 seats. Region C, Eastern Europe, with 2 seats. Region D, Africa, with 3 seats. And Region E, Asia Pacific, with 3 seats. The members of the board perform their duties on a part-time basis. Each member is eligible for re-election only once, so a member can serve a maximum term of 8 years. The director of the BR is the executive secretary of the board and is assisted by experts from the BR as appropriate. I need to say that Mr. Maniwix, the BR director, and his team offer great assistance to the board, and we appreciate their service very much. On the slide now, you can see 6 of the current members of the board. Mr. Yvonne Henry is the chairman of the board for this year, 2024, and Mr. Agostino Linares de Souza is the vice chair. He will become the chairman for 2025. These are the other 6 members of the board. At our last meeting, Mrs. Sahiba Hassanova Abdulayeva was elected the vice chair for 2025, so she will serve as chair in 2026. The practice is to rotate the chairmanship among the geographical regions. Now let's look at the duties of the board. One of the key functions of the board is to consider and approve the rules of procedure. I'll talk a bit more about this later. The board also considers appeals on the Bureau's decisions and other requests when made by an administration. Per Article 14.6 of the Radio Regulations, the board's decisions on such matters are final, and if an administration has reservations about the board's decision, it may raise the matter at the next BRC for the conference to decide accordingly. The board is mandated to consider interference cases between countries when so referred by an administration. When the Bureau identifies issues which cannot be resolved through the direct application of the radio regulations, it refers it for consideration by the board. The board participates in an advisory role at the Radio Communications Assembly, the BRCs, and at plenipotentiary conferences. The board can be assigned tasks by the BRC or the ITU Council. One such task referred by the BRC is the consideration of requests for limited and qualified extension of regulatory time limits for bringing into use or bringing back into use of frequency assignments to a satellite in cases of co-passenger delay or force majeure. These requests for extensions feature regularly on the board's agenda. I'll shed some more light on this when I discuss our recent activities. The board also prepares reports to the BRC on its activities, recommendations on possible modifications to the radio regs to transfer the content of some rules of procedure. We are also required to make recommendations to address the BRC Resolution 80 on due diligence in applying the principles embodied in the Constitution. As earlier mentioned, the approval of the rules of procedure is one of the key mandates of the board. The ROPs are intended to complement the radio regulations and regional agreements. Where a provision is clear and can be applied, there is no need for an ROP. However, there are many instances where the Bureau may have to make some determinations in the application of the radio regs or a regional agreement. For example, if the radio regs do not specify the propagation prediction model for the calculation of a PFD level, then there is the need to develop an ROP to indicate which model the Bureau will be using. Sometimes it has to do with clarifying the procedure used by the Bureau to apply specific provisions of the radio regs. So they are developed only when there is a clear need, and they must be in conformity with the spirit and principle of the Constitution, Convention, and the radio regulations. The ROPs are organized in three parts. Part A, for rules relating to the provisions of the radio regulations. These are referenced by the specific radio regulations provision to which they apply. Part B, for rules relating to a process, that is a technical examination. It covers various calculation methodologies and technical examination criteria. Part C covers internal arrangements and working methods of the board. It addresses how the board carries out its duties, the timelines for administrations to submit documents, how delayed documents are treated, etc. There is a transparent process for developing the rules of procedure. As shown on the slide, a draft ROP is prepared by the Bureau and reviewed by the board. The draft is then circulated to administrations for comment via a CCRR circular letter. The draft ROP and comments from administrations are then presented to the board for approval. Each comment from administrations is carefully reviewed by the board in the process of approving an ROP. Once approved, the BR publishes the approved ROP in a CR circular letter. After every BRC, the rules of procedure are reviewed. Some are suppressed because they are no longer needed due to the BRC decisions. Some are revised, and some new rules are developed to aid the Bureau in the application of some conference decisions. The board typically meets 3 times in the year. Sections 1.5 and 1.6 of Part C of the Rules of Procedure state the timelines for the submission of documents by administrations for the meetings of the board. Please take note that the submissions must reach the BR at least 3 weeks before the board meeting. The meeting dates are published on the RRB section of the ITU website. On the other hand, comments on the rules of procedure should be submitted at least 4 weeks to the board meeting. The chairman works with the executive secretary to prepare the draft agenda for the meeting, and he or she moderates the meetings of the board. Transparency of the board. Number 95 of the Constitution mandates the board to be transparent in the development of rules of procedure. PP Resolution 119 places obligations on the board to ensure it attains a higher degree of transparency in its decision-making processes. To this end, all documents of the board are posted on the RRB website. All that there is to know is available online. Meeting dates and deadlines, meeting agenda and documents on the agenda, summary of decisions which also states the reasons for each decision, minutes of the meeting which reflect the detailed and comprehensive consideration by the board members, draft ROPs and approved ROPs, and an archive of past documents are all available on the website. In pursuance of the board's mandate to be transparent, any submission to the board containing restricted material, for example, confidential, proprietary, sensitive, etc., shall be returned by the Bureau, who will invite the administration concerned to resubmit an unrestricted document if it wishes the board to consider the material. Every document the board will consider will be published, so the submission must be prepared with that in mind. Submissions to the board must also be clear and legible. Scanned documents should be in high resolution to facilitate their processing. Let me round up with highlights of some of the recent activities of the board. The board submitted its Res 80 report to the BRC 23, and it was very well received. The rules of procedure have been reviewed to reflect the decisions of the BRC 23. The board regularly considers requests for extension of regulatory deadlines for bringing into use or bringing back into use the frequency assignment to a space station of a satellite network or system. At its last meeting, the board noted with great concern the Bureau's report on numerous cases of harmful interference affecting receivers in the radio navigation satellite service, including those used by civil aviation. Some administrations also sought the board's assistance in respect of harmful interference to RNSS. The harmful interference cases reported were characterized by spoofing and jamming, which contravene number 15.1 of the radio regulations. I would like to use this opportunity to reiterate the board's message to the administrations concerned to cooperate in the resolution of the cases pursuant to their obligations under Article 45 and 47 of the Constitution, as well as the relevant provisions of the radio regulations. The safety aspects of radio navigation and other safety services require special measures to ensure their freedom from harmful interference, and all member states must take the urgent steps to address these interference cases when brought to their attention. There have been other cases before the board regarding harmful interference to the broadcasting satellite service reported by some administrations in Europe. The board continues to urge the concerned administrations to exercise the utmost goodwill and mutual assistance in the resolution of the harmful interference cases. There is a long-standing terrestrial broadcasting interference issue in the Adriatic-Ionian region of Europe, which the board continues to attend to. Since last year, the topical case of the operation of transmitting F stations on the territory of an administration without authorization has been before the board, and we continue to urge the concerned administrations to act in compliance with the radio regs to resolve the matter. Before I conclude, I would like to highlight a few things from the Res 80 report to the BRC 23. The conference endorsed a list of measures adopted by the board and implemented by the Bureau to facilitate the implementation of Resolution 559, which resulted in 41 new entries in the Appendices 30 and 30A plans in Regions 1 and 3. The conference also confirmed the list of information and documentation required for the consideration of a request for extension of regulatory time limit due to force majeure or co-passenger delay. It is extremely important for administrations to check the lists in preparation of their submissions on this subject. I've provided a link to the minutes of the plenary which contains the list. Clearly laying out your case and how it satisfies the four conditions for a force majeure is very important. Attaching relevant documentary evidence is also helpful. The board's decision is based on the information provided and how it meets the criteria. distinguished colleagues, I would like to conclude by reiterating that the members of the board serve the union independently on a part-time basis, devoid of all interest to uphold the trust reposed in us by the member states. We aim at maintaining high levels of transparency, reaching fair and consistent decisions, and will continue to offer advice that supports the needs of member states. I thank you very much for your kind attention.